Welcome, and welcome to the Leopard desktop running on the Power Mac G4 Sawtooth. It does run, and it runs pretty well, for the most part, at least as well as Tiger. And my feeling would be if you can run Leopard and have it run at least as well as Tiger, run Leopard. There's a lot of enhancements, and it's a lot closer to what a true modern operating system ought to be. Nothing against Tiger. Tiger is a fine operating system. The fail parts of it. I had some hopes about Leopard WebKit. On this processor, it's a no-go. I can go to YouTube, which is the primary fail of this machine, and it will load up the home page. But trying to load a video, it just crashes. Now, 10.4 Fox, and particularly the Fox box that's enslaved to YouTube, does work, again, at least as well as on Tiger. Very slow, very stuttery, lots of drop frames, not a very satisfying experience, but it does it. And you can get on the internet quite well with 10.4 Fox, but it is slow, painfully slow. 10.4 Bird for email, pretty much the same as it was on Tiger. It takes a good long while to load, but once it's loaded, it works really well. And the productivity, NeoOffice loads slowly. It tends to be a slow loading operating system, although admittedly this is even slower. But for the most part, good. Now, this was not intended to be the main focus for this video. What I wanted to do, if we go to System Preferences and start up disk, okay, we're populating now. To take a deeper look at macOS 9. So let's restart and get into the OS 9 desktop. A quick look at Happy Mac there. Now, I'm using this monitor specifically because I can easily angle the monitor and thus have the camera off the side, making it a little easier for me to get to the keyboard and mouse. Well, it is still kind of awkward. This monitor, however, does not really auto-adjust itself. So, give me a moment. And that'll do it. Oh, I just auto-adjusted again. Okay, so now we see our desktop. It's loaded up pretty quickly. Some of the features of the OS 9 desktop. You'll notice, of course, one of the reasons I'm doing this is, while there are some people who look at these who look back with nostalgia at OS 9, There are also a lot of people who look at this who have never really seen OS 9, maybe have an idea that it existed, but no real idea. So I'd like to find out, for those people specifically, a little bit about how OS 9 works, what the differences are between OS 9 and OS 10, aside from being a completely different architecture. That's all under the hood. And also find what a lot of the real similarities are, because someone who is reasonably conversant with OS 10, confronted with OS 9, will probably be able to figure it out quite quickly. The primary feature you see here is that there is no dock along the bottom. And no, it's not that the dock is hidden or anything like that. It just didn't exist. Instead, you have this long row of icons here on the right-hand side. Now, that's a little deceptive looking at this machine. In fact, there's several things that are deceptive looking here. One, I'm basically looking at using the Sawtooth as part of a two-machine tandem to examine and study the early macOS 10 operating systems plus OS 9, and if I can get a machine that will cooperate with me, OS 8 as well. That means there are two drives in this machine, the one on the internal FireWire and an SSD that is attached to the IDE connection. There goes the ambulance. Okay, so there's a disproportionate number here of drive icons because I've got separate partitions on those drives for a variety of operating systems. OS 9, Panther, Jaguar. That's not really an OS 9 partition. It really just has the documents that the other OS 9s are looking at. Blank hard drive that used to be Panther. That's the 20 gig hard drive that came with the machine. Leopard, Tiger, and somewhere here, too many icons. Oh yes, the data, that's an extra partition on the FireWire SSD that's shared between all of the operating systems, making it easy to move files from one OS to the other once you boot in and out. On an actual traditional OS 9 machine, you would see one, possibly two icons that are drives. Everything else will be shortcuts, known in the Mac world as aliases, to commonly used programs. And I have several of those here. After Dark is the screensaver. For some reason, it doesn't really kick in unless I have an alias on the desktop. A little strange. Print Shop. We saw this a little bit on one of the OS 10 versions. A great little program for making greeting cards, signs, banners. I used it when I was teaching a whole lot. Online greetings, what I primarily use it for now on holidays and events. Great little program, and it runs. Hello, can't quit. I guess I've got to pick a project here. Start from scratch, next, and there's a project. Boy, is that taking up the whole screen. Okay, we'll quit out of that. Apple Works, an old productivity program, but one of great interest. Word processing, spreadsheet, database. Let's give a couple of presentations, like PowerPoint. The tabs down here, assistance for various projects that you can do, making an envelope in Word, making a certificate, variety of templates you can use, dad certificate, web applications, not really web pages, but newsletter and various templates, and then recent items. Now, unlike the Office Suite, you had a drawing component to this. And you could, I'm looking sideways at the screen here so the camera can look forward, draw things. Not that I'm particularly great at that. Okay, so we'll close out of AppleWorks. I will note that AppleWorks, documents, at least word processing, spreadsheet, presentation, can all be saved in Word formats. So it's actually still quite usable to this day for your basic productivity tasks. We'll skip ClassZilla for a second. We also have Microsoft Word. Opening up. Same idea here. In addition to Word, Excel is in there. PowerPoint is in there. Entourage, which was the mail application. All right, now we're going to have to open a Word document, because until we do that, we can't quit the program. All right. Stuff it expander, an alias to that. The zip files of the era, if you have a file that has been compressed by Stuffit, it would have the .sit extension, and you can uncompress it, unzip it as it were, by dragging the file and dropping it in this window. There's a companion to it. I deleted the alias from the desktop just because this was getting so full, but called Drop Stuff, where you could drop a file in order to have it archived, and it would archive for you, and you'd come up with a smaller file with the .sit extension. Handy utility when you're dealing with the old files to get programs and various things on this. Sherlock, the spotlight of its day, it works reasonably well for searching things on the drive as long as you let it do its indexing. It does not work so well searching the web because the web has changed so much. But that was what search was. So we'll quit out of that. All right. Now, various other things. There is the control strip down here. I leave it hidden this way because I don't really use it that much. It gives you access to a number of items very, very quickly. I don't know why it's up here. You usually on it probably has to do with the fact that you're looking at a wide screen. Monitors simply weren't like this back when OS 9 was a current thing, but it deals very well with the widescreen ratio. But this is one thing: the control strip is up a good deal further. You can hide it, but I have decided generally not to do that. All right. Now, the Finder menu's up here. File. Very similar to what you would see in OS 10. Edit, almost exactly the same, although there's a preference dialog. Yes, to go to Simple Find. Now that's interesting that the Finder preferences are under Edit. That's not where you would find them on OS 10 at all. Views, labels. Labels were I think, a new thing. Okay, so we can just close that one. Window, not really different. Help. And you get balloon help, show balloons, so that you'd get something, you'd get this little dumb balloon that would come up. I never liked it myself. There's no Go drop down in the Finder menu bar, which surprised me a little bit, finding things like finding utilities. Where are they? But there is this special, which I kind of overlooked when I first started dealing with this. Special is where you find empty the trash. It's where you find the commands to deal with the DVD, yeah, to eject the disk. If you've got one in there, it's going to be in the special menu. Also, sleep, restart, shutdown are all in the special menu, not in the Apple menu. And that takes a good deal of getting used to if your primary background is OS 10. Come time to shut down the computer, you're just wondering, okay, how do you shut down the computer? All right. Now, we'll deal with the Apple menu in a bit, but I did want to talk here. There are many more applications on the system than you see icons down in here. To get to them, got to get into the hard drive and applications, macOS 9, and here we find, all of the other applications. If you, the ones that have, I didn't look at ClassZilla. I have to remember to do that. Print Shop, Apple, what is in Apple Extras? Monitors, extra folder, map control panel. All right, that's those things that would be addable to it. Graphing calculator. Internet Explorer is there. Netscape. I added this in just for old time's sake. Netscape Navigator. 7.0.2 was the last version of Netscape that would run on classic macOS. And it does still run. But little things like, well, this start page that it has here was a Yahoo Netscape page, which no longer exists. And realistically, you can't go much of anywhere a little dim here to see the faded keys. Oh, I see what it did. It will go to Google. You can always go to Google. In fact, that's my standard test. If I want to make sure I've got internet connectivity, but I'm not sure about the browsers, go to Google. That will always, if it won't open, you've got a much more serious problem on your hands. Okay, but Netscape is not usable. Even worse, Netscape Communicator 4.7. Absolutely cannot do anything. And you can say pretty much the same thing. Come on, close down. You can close too. All right, about Internet Explorer. They'll all go to Google. That's often about it. All right. What else do we have here? Outlook Express. I have no idea if Outlook Express is actually going to do anything at all. Value Pack? I don't even know what's in Value Pack. Value Pack Installer, Clip Art. Well, at some point I'll have to take a look and see what that is, but not on camera. All right. Security. Apple File Security, Apple Verifier. No, doesn't do much. Okay, now there is a utilities folder here. And it's not nearly as populated as the utilities folder on OS 10. However, there are some things here. Disk burner. disk copy, disk first aid, drive setup. These are all things that in OS X have been combined into disk utility in the utilities menu. They were separate applications, but they're here. So let's not complain too much. Okay. Yes, I did want to make sure we looked at ClassZilla. So I'll open this up. Now you look at this window, it looks a lot like the Netscape 7 window, and there's a good reason for that. Netscape 7 was based off the Mozilla Suite project, which Netscape largely started as an open source. Spun it off quickly. It was never an official part of Netscape, but Netscape 7 was based on Mozilla. I believe Mozilla 1.0. ClassZilla was also based on Mozilla. So very, very, very similar looking programs. Let's start this up. That is the icon. If it's going to start. Yep, it is. See my little wristwatch thing there. Okay. We're waiting a second now for ClassZilla to load up, and I think it has actually pretty quickly there. Did I speak too soon? Okay. So this is the mail component. It's part of ClassZilla, and it has all my many email accounts there. And it works very, very well. The mail comes in very well. There's not a whole lot that it can't do. The one thing that was a problem, this was sourced from a version of Mozilla Suite back in the day when people would generally have one outgoing SMTP mail server. You know, your ISP would have email and would have an SMTP server, and you could put in all sorts of other accounts, but they would all send mail out from that one SMTP server. Now, I don't know about you, but for me that's no longer the case. I have all of these accounts, all of them have independent SMTP servers, and they have to use those servers. They can't use the AOL server or the Gmail server. You simply can't do it that way. You have to use that server. I did, however, find a service, a free service, depending on how much email you send, that gave an SMTP server that I could use that would work for all of these accounts. Now, I could only do that because I have a couple of websites. I used one in particular where I could get into the workings of the server through cPanel and add name server information, which allowed it to work. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to do that. So basically, you would have one account from which you could send. If you have other accounts, they'll bring in the mail, but you won't be able to respond to them. Not completely useless. Okay, we can close out of that. All right, now ClassZilla is not perfect, but it works a good deal better. Google, of course, comes up. Most importantly, it will bring you quite quickly. You get used to these alerts if you're using this, to the websites that are most important for having archived applications and even entire operating system install files for these older Mac operating systems. This one is Mac Repository. I like this. Macintosh Repository salutes you. SSL has been deactivated for you. That's one. The other primary one, although there are some others, Macintosh Garden. Lots of games on this site, but a lot of applications too. Between these two sites, you can set yourself up pretty well with working applications. Sometimes a little funny, you've got to learn the ins and outs of making all of it work, but work it will do. And ClassZilla can get you there, and get you there quickly. Now let's work on, go away. Yeah, working our way back to Google. I was this afternoon looking for some icon files. I like to put definite icons for the different drives that I have so I can tell very, very quickly with a glance at the desktop what drive is what. So I did search using 10.4 files for SSD icons. And I got a whole lot. Icon archive. Now that one comes up very, very quickly. Generally, ClassZilla, there's a lot of sites ClassZilla just can't handle. But there's a lot of sites that it can. And the ones that it can handle, it will tend to get to much, much more quickly. All right. Icon archive. And that one comes up pretty well too. Oh, that was actually the same site, wasn't it? Oops. All right, this is an interesting one. OWC. Now, you usually see this warning about cannot communicate securely because they have no common encryption algorithms. And often that means forget about it, it won't load. But the OWC site, macsales.com, did in fact load. Kind of. And you can see this a lot in ClassZilla.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I get that.
Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh.
Are we done? Maybe we're done. Yeah, I mean, actually using this is going to be difficult, but there is a trick. In the view menu, use style. Instead of default style, choose none. Now it's going to have to reload the page. We're going to have to go through these blasted warnings again. But you see here this very bare bones,
Uh-oh.
strange looking kind of thing.
Uh-oh.
Oh, stop that. I should change that alert back to the ding, so I'm going to have to wait for it to go through all of these. But once we have, you can actually navigate the site through this. It's a little awkward, but everything is going to be there. And if a page loads, but it looks like you're just not going to be able to find anything, much as this page was, this would be your answer. All right. Well, let's try to go back to Google. to switch the style back to default style. Not much different than Google. It's a very simple style sheet. Okay, so I think that's it for our look here. Now the last thing I wanted to do here is take a look at the Apple menu drop down, because there's a lot of stuff in here that's different. Of course, the restart, shutdown commands, there's no log out, are all in the special menu. But there are a number of things that are different here. Airport, there's no airport card in here. DVD player, there is a DVD drive, so if we wanted to do that. About this computer, very basic information about the computer, you know, macOS 9.2.2, 1.99 gigabyte, that's the 2 gigabyte. I don't think it actually addresses all of that. The largest unused block, 1.42. I have read that OS 9 would only deal with 1.5, but given where computers were when this software was written, that's a tremendous amount of RAM for this machine. All right, now System Profiler. To get to System Profiler in OS 10, you would click About This Mac and then More Info. System Profiler. And here's where we're going to find all of the information about the system. Devices and volumes, the various things that are connected and how they're connected, control panels that are in there, applications. This is kind of funny. Now you probably won't, this goes by quickly, you probably won't see it, but it actually says 220 applications. The majority of those are just things that came with the vanilla install of 9.2. I had not installed 220 applications on this machine. Okay. You can quit out of that. And see what else we get. Network browser. You know, you can find the applications you've opened most recently, the documents you've opened most recently, connecting to servers. Time has passed OS 9 by on connecting to network servers. And various things. Sherlock 2, which we saw from the alias down there. Stickies, a way of getting quick little notes in there. All right. But one of the things that you would think about with no dock, there's no system preferences. Well, how the heck are you going to adjust things then? That's the control panels. Here you have a variety of different control panels that will control most anything you might need to. If you wanted to change the startup disk, which you'd usually find in system preferences, there it is. The software update, which would usually be in About This Mac, or just under the Apple menu actually, in the control panel. A whole bunch of monitors. In system preferences, it'd be referred to as displays, but you can deal with that. The mouse, keyboard, you know, all things that you would find through system preferences. Extensions manager, extensions are a whole other thing to deal with. I think maybe it's best that I don't. But yes, these control panels are very, 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 very important to know about, and this generally is how you're going to control the computer. All right, now we've been at this a little over half an hour, so one of the things I was going to do was talk about why there still are people who use OS 9 and what they use it for. You can use it for basic productivity. In a sense, you can get on the internet, at least to assist that productivity. But probably most commonly, people like to play the games that they played when they were younger on machines that are more like the ones they used when they were younger and in the operating system. And that's become quite a cult thing. Now, given the length of this video, I was going to demonstrate 3 such games that were very popular games back in the day. But I think the wise thing to do will be to make that into a separate video. If you're interested in seeing me fumble around playing games that I don't really remember how to play, I recommend that video to you. So we'll close this one up for now, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this quick look here, well, not so quick look actually, into OS 9 and how it works. Yeah, when they devised OS 10 with that completely different architecture, they tried to keep enough of the look and feel of the classic macOS so as not to just completely lose that loyal following that they had. Well, anyway, take care and have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, whatever it is when you see this.